little lake or a big lake called Lake Huron, just north of Michigan. And again, this just connects us from a human standpoint, right? Now you know that this is a beach. It's about 6 minutes from my house. So if you come hang out with me, we can walk and talk on this water. But it's not what I'm here for. What I'm here to do is I'm here to show and shout out some other people that I met on Clubhouse that really impacted me in a very big way and give them their flowers. Actually, I'm going to go back to my YouTube channel yesterday and a video that I did with a man named David Hill. So let me just go to my channel super quick. When I go to my channel, you'll notice I run a segment called Prime People. I have all kinds of people on. I've had Judy Fox. She's a master at LinkedIn. Andrew Fogliato. He runs one of the best email marketing companies out there. I had Dan O'Neill going viral on Instagram, teaching you how to go viral on Instagram and all those places. But check this one out. Yesterday, I had David Hill. He came on the podcast, and many of you know David Hill because he spends a lot of time in Breakfast with Champions. The reason I'm pointing that out is we had a conversation around how important it is to be inspired by people rather than jealous of people. We had a very in-depth conversation about the different spaces that we spend time in and how seeing other people's success has led us to become more successful because we're open to the conversation. I think you'll get two types of people quite often. Some that will come into a room and feel like because somebody else is moderated or because somebody else is achieving success, that it's taking away from their success. Then you'll find people like David who will walk into that exact same room and see that Brian Benstock's on a private jet and be motivated that, well, yeah, I may be flying WestJet or Blue now, but maybe I can be the one that's on the jet. How do I do that, right? How do I figure that out? How do I get to that where that person was? So I'm going to go through a whole bunch of Breakfast with Champions moderators in terms of how they impacted me. And I would love for people to jump in the chat. And as they say these people's names or they see them, if you're on the live stream, tell me how this person impacted you. If you know this person or if you're inspired by something that I'm saying, I would love to know because I don't just want this to be the Justin show. I want it to be collaborative. So first and foremost, Mr. William Tong. So I'm scrolling on William Tong's Instagram. Everybody knows this face. He was the very first person I met on Clubhouse. I think it was a random real estate room. Quietest guy, but he was just running the show. And if anybody knows William Tong, jump in the chat and let us know. It can be on YouTube or in Clubhouse. One thing about William, I think that still sticks with me to this day, and his fingerprints are definitely on how I moderate my rooms, is his empathy for other human beings. So William Tong, although he, I think, is living in the metaverse right now, was somebody that early on in Clubhouse was a super connector. He got on the app very early on, really understood the power of social audio. But more than that, he spent so much time listening and hearing people's hearts that I really think he did a good job impacting and had a whole bunch of Clubhouse babies that run other rooms and other segments that still showcase his character as a human being. I still talk to William Tong from time to time and reach out to him to make sure he's doing okay. And it's interesting because my friendship with William reminds me of a lot of my friendships with other people on this app where there was never a selling point to our friendship. It's not like he needed me to do something. And if I wasn't that person, that he wasn't going to be there for me. We were friends regardless of if we talked every single day or if he disappeared for 6 months. Our friendship still remains the same. And I think anybody that knows William knows that he has a big, big heart and it really did impact me in a big way. I also wanted to point out as I'm scrolling his feed, this photo right here from 2018, he's sitting with Gary Vee and Tom Ferry and he's networking and talking about the power of networking. This next photo, he talks about how the referrals through the Ferry network are going to be a big part of his business moving forward. Very insightful, right? So another lesson you can learn from Mr. William Tong is the fact that networking and spending time in the right places with the right people can be an absolute game changer for your business and life, but you have to activate it and you have to actually show up in those networks. So the next person that I'm going to share, let me close out William, that impacted me on this application. I'll kind of go in order. William Tong, I actually hosted a room in his honor, which I didn't realize he absolutely hated. But there was a gentleman named Glennundy that popped into that room. Didn't know anything about Glennundy, didn't know who he was, but I'm just going to go through high level the different moderators on Clubhouse and kind of lessons I've learned from them. So Glenn was a fascinating individual because when he came into the room, I realized there was an impact and an energy behind his words. And the room that we hosted for William that I first met Glenn in, Glenn came in and really really talked about William's heart as a human being. And really what I noticed about Glenn was how vulnerable he was about his story, right? I think he shared in that room that, his story about his past and, how he came from a pretty broken life and how he was trying to impart that into other people. But another thing that inspired me about Glenn was the fact that he also wasn't scared to jump in with 2 feet from his previous career into what he's doing now, right? He saw opportunity, he broke through ceilings, and he's somebody that wakes up every day and you can tell is making his own path in a very uncertain world. And I'll even use Breakfast with Champions as an example. Like, I have seen Glenn make so many modifications and changes based on the evolution of what the community needs, right? I've seen communities on Clubhouse grow and I've seen them implode because the leadership isn't willing to navigate what's best for the community or even listen to the other people that are around him. And I've seen him make it about the people and the community. Yes, he has his ambitions and yes, he has his drive, but he listens. I've been on phone calls with him where he has listened and he's attentive to people. And my favorite thing about Glennundy is he says people's names. He makes you feel heard. The way that he would come into a room and he would mention every single person by name. And if you've never heard his story about that man in the car, I would encourage you to go listen to his bio and his story. Really, really impacted me in a huge, huge way. And I've shared that with my wife and my daughter fairly extensively. So again, if you are on the Clubhouse, feel free to jump in the chat. Let us know how Glennundy has impacted you. If you click the link at the top, come over to YouTube. There's a whole bunch of people that are hanging out in the chat. Oh my gosh. Okay. Nathaniel Banks, he's on day 52 of 75 hard. What's up, brother? Kate Volman, nice to see you as well. I see Tom Popelka. I see Armando. I see Don Sankey, and I see Kimberly Farr indicating Glenn is one who introduced her to Clubhouse. Clubhouse has given her so many friends, forever grateful. We definitely see that. I love seeing you every day, Kimberly Farr, as well, too. So from Glennundy, I jumped into his little room called Breakfast with Champions. Actually, William dragged me into Breakfast with Champions, pinged me in, kept bringing me on stage. He's like, just hang out, just hang out, just hang out. I had no idea who these people were. I was just kind of sit on the stage, and I'd only pipe in every now and then if it was anything pertinent that I could say. But the next person that I want to give a little bit of shine to is this man right here, Mr. Brian Benstock. So I was hanging out. I was coming in on Saturdays. And unbeknownst to a lot of you, my in-laws are actually in the automotive business. Fun fact, my wife was actually one of the first female dealer principals in North America. Her mom, I believe, was like the first or second female dealer principal in all of Canada. So they came from the automotive business. And Brian was running these Saturday morning sales meetings. Barbara Mjeski was there, who we will get to in a little bit. And it became one of my favorite rooms on Clubhouse. Come in every single Saturday. I'd be there at 9 a.m. I would play it. My wife and daughter would be there. Sometimes my father-in-law would be sitting there. And my father-in-law is like the guy for classic cars in North America. You should see this guy's facility. And we would just talk shop, talk about sales. And I think a couple things that I absolutely love about Brian, and anybody can echo this in the chat, is, his relentless pursuit. I think that's a good way to put it. And his resiliency. A lot of people have misconceived notions, I think, of his intention because he'll just pull off the Band-Aid and tell you how it is. But I think this world needs a little bit of tough love. So one of my favorite things about Brian is the fact that he's going to tell it how it is. He's kind of an everyman. You can tell he's speaking to any and all people. And he's seen quite a bit over his years. And he really does impart a lot of wisdom from the sales perspective. Another thing that he did for me in a very, very big way was he made me think bigger. So I remember early on, I was thinking about my brokerage and my companies. So I own a real estate brokerage, a production company, and an agency. Really from the aspect that I almost was competing with other people in my niche. I realize now I'm not. Like, I'm competing with Amazon. That's my only real competition. There's not another brokerage on the planet that's doing what we're doing. And I can tell you that came directly from a conversation that I had with Brian Benstock. So shout out to my man B. He's always around. I don't know if he's here right now, but if you like Mr. Benstock, hit it in the chat. Kimberly Farr says he does not hold back. He sure doesn't. And I know he'll be around tomorrow morning to chat about that. Next up, my girl, Amanda Dahl. So when I was running my segments on Clubhouse, as many of you know, me and Amanda were running our segments every single week together. So Amanda and I found a cadence. I'm not sure how. I'm not sure why. But we were running the room. Oh, it was because of William. Again, actually, William brought us both on stage and we kept covering his segments. And Amanda is pretty interesting. She helped build a very large real estate team in Florida, and she's on the operations side. So she is what you would know as an integrator, right? Somebody that can take a visionary's ideas, optimize them, create standard operating procedures, and actually implement them. I'm more of somebody that would be, say, a visionary that can come up with 5,000 ideas. I can put energy behind any one of your ideas, but the integration aspect of it is something where I do need somebody like an Amanda, and I have Amandas in my actual organization. But it was really fun to watch that back and forth that I would have with her on Breakfast with the Champs and other spaces. And it's interesting because it's very natural, very honest. Fun fact, I've never actually met Amanda. A lot of people thought that we were related. She thought she was literally my sister because we would run so many segments. But I think a lot of people don't understand the depth of knowledge that a lady like Amanda has and how she's willing to share it. I know her flight just got canceled from New York City, so I'm not sure if she's hanging out right now. But another thing that inspires me about Amanda is she bet on herself. So last year, she made a huge change. She left that organization, started her own consulting company. She is speaking on massive stages now, traveling, living her best life. And it's not easy, right? She shares a lot of things about how she's going through challenges and she's finding her right client types. And she's saying no to the wrong people and yes to the right people. And it's messy and it's dirty and it's bumpy, but that's what life is. And I think Amanda does a great job sharing that publicly. And I'm not sure if she's in the room, but if you know Amanda, let me know your favorite thing about her in the chat. And I'll try and go back to the comments in a second and share that out. So I've got a whole bunch of tabs open. My man, Stephen Kuhn, is next. He knows that my love for him runs deep because he's collaborated with me in a few different ways and helped me from a personal level. Remember, he jumped on a quick call with me. I was struggling from a dietary perspective about 4 months ago, and he was checking out at the grocery store in Hungary and took time to call me. I could literally hear the beeping of the checkout line and really inspired me, gave me some hacks that I can use. And a couple of things I want to highlight about Steven. As you all know, he runs some incredible segments on Breakfast with the Champions. I don't know if you know the depth of this man's skill set. I think people can take it for granted on this platform, some of the people that they have access to. And as you have more access to somebody, it almost feels like, oh yeah, they're just here. They're just hanging out every week. I mean, this guy has created incredible businesses, consulted with some of the most amazing people on the planet. I would really suggest you go check out the episode of Prime People that I did with him. Very insightful, very, very high skill set level in terms of business consulting. Like we can get stuck in the weeds in business and never grow because you're just focusing on the little things. This guy has a great way of looking at the macro and simplifying ultra complex problems. And again, putting energy behind ideas in the right way. One other thing I learned from him too is, really to break that mindset of there's only one way to do something and to be in flow. Right. I'm very one track minded. I develop SOPs. I almost have to structure my days in such a way and be so disciplined that I realized that was a crutch. So Stephen helped me realize that you can have that framework in place, but when the framework's not there, if you collapse because you don't have the framework, then you're not actually super resilient. So finding that flow in your work and that fun is something that he's really inspired me to do and continues to do as well. I don't know exactly when his segments are. If somebody wants to drop it in the chat as well, and some things that you love about Steven and how he's inspired you in the chat on YouTube or in the chat on Clubhouse, I'm going to go back and read all the comments because I'd love to see how he impacted you guys. And also being who he is, right? Just as a human being and the vulnerability he shares, I know has impacted people in a huge, huge way. Another one of my favorites, Mrs. Kim Walsh Phillips, who's going to be up right after me. She knows this. Really surprised me in a few different ways. So Kim Walsh Phillips, probably one of the most super connected people I've met, but has so much fun and is unequivocally herself in everything that she does. So I was able to speak at the Success Fast Summit that she ran. This girl runs boss summits. She's unapologetic about the value that's driven there. She's unapologetic about how to get in there, how to sign up, because there's so much value. One thing she's been teaching me recently is to not apologize for an ask on my side, right? If I'm putting effort behind something and I'm going to formulate it into something down the road that is something that people need access to, and there is going to be limited access, putting parameters around that and honoring something that I'm building rather than just feeling like I have to just give it away and give it away and give it away, and realizing that having a little bit of exclusivity is okay if the value's there. So she's, again, a super connector, runs some of the best summits I've ever seen on the planet. And does a lot. Her team is incredible. I got 2 gifts from her after the speaking at the summit, and we still talk about those gifts with my wife and daughter. So special shout out to Kim Walsh Phillips. We always collaborate around 6:15, so I'll be jumping on and chatting with her in a little bit. But really, again, just she's not afraid. I think that's another thing I want to point out about Kim. So anybody that feels scared, understand that, look at somebody like Kim as inspiration and draw from that inspiration to step into your strength, and the world is yours for the taking. I think this photo of her at Success Fast Formula is one of my favorites because this is her, right? This is her personality, and she, I think, enjoys the game more than almost anybody I've seen. Next up, I've got our girl Jann, who just went. Jann and I have become friends through Breakfast with Champions and in different spaces, and, you know, very insightful, very intelligent, very graceful. And I like how she's consistently herself in her approach to the different topics she covers. Like, she can jump from her Easter message to longevity to sleep to the almost the mathematics behind health today, while still being who she is. And there's no angle with Jann. I think she's got one of the best voices on Clubhouses and one of the best personalities I've seen, which is why I think she inspires so many different people. I've heard other people, and this is probably one of my favorite things about Jann, is how well other people speak about her, even when she's not in the room. So I think that's an indication of something that we all want, right? Is, can you become the person that people are loving on when you're not in the room? And I think she's a good example of somebody that you can watch as to how to go about and do that. So I think I got a good one next. I got Mr. Ramon Ray. Ding, 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 ding. I don't think he's here. No, he's not on the actual live. That's okay. Ramon, I think, again, very surprising individual, right? Shows up every single week. You can kind of take it for granted that he's here. Brings on Seth Godin, one of my personal heroes, on a Breakfast with the Champions. And I get to ask Seth Godin a question, bucket list item, inspirational, but also super vulnerable, and just such a great example of the character of the people on Clubhouse. Like, he has shared the wins, he has shared the losses, the struggles, the team building. There's my man Ramon. I don't know if you're on the live stream, Ramon, but if you click on the link at the very, very top, we have your face up, and we are just talking about you, my man. And one of my favorite things about you, Ramon, is you are you, right? Everything that encompasses who Ramon Ray is, you share. And the cool thing is, by showing up, it gets you in proximity, right? The deals that you're closing right now are a result of you showing up on a regular basis. I think it's super insightful, Ramon, how you are constantly looking and searching for that next way to level up. We've talked on the phone, offsite or off Clubhouse, about growth in small business and helping people like us that don't necessarily have a leg up in a very difficult industry. But then you've also talked about landing deals with massive companies and the in between. And I think Ramon is a great bridge between those two things. And I think unequivocally his positivity, his levity to this group is unmatched. I think doesn't matter what segment I catch him into, he always makes me smile. I still remember when I used to run my segments with Amanda, his segment was right after, and we would always smile, or it was right before. But the ding, 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 ding just always made me smile. So we got lots of love for you, Mr. Ramon. If you're live on Clubhouse and you have no idea what I'm talking about in terms of talking about people live, it's because we are streaming live on YouTube. Click the link at the very, very top. Make sure to hit that subscription button so you can go back and watch this episode. I've had a lot of these people on the Prime People podcast as well, so you can get more intimate with them. And we also have Miss Barbara Mjeski. I could not let this segment go by without her. I spent a lot of time in the early days in the Saturday morning sales room. Still one of my favorite rooms on Clubhouse. It's in my calendar. I try and be there every single Saturday, but I've heard Barbara share her story a number of times about resiliency. I think her story about just clawing her way out of a tough spot should inspire a lot of people, that when everybody else is trying to tear you down and put their foot on your neck, if you can push through, on the other side can be a life that's so incredible that you don't even necessarily think you deserve, but it's there if you can push through. And also, I think her combined with Brian Benstock, so interesting. A, because you realize their friendship is genuine. B, they balance each other very, very well. And it's just a different perspective, right? She comes from the space of media, obviously has done a lot of stuff with the Today Show. She's becoming a speaker in her own right. And Barbara's an interesting person too, because she's a great example of the future of media. So I spend a lot of time helping people build brands, right? So I obviously do it within my own real estate company from a national level now, but on the production side, we consult with a lot of businesses. We help them with digital strategy, we help them with content production, and then we help them with building a brand. And we try and teach them how to fish. I'm not really in the business of trying to just get reoccurring revenue, because sending a photographer to their business every week, it's not profitable anymore in this day and age, because anybody can shoot content. But what we try and hammer to them is a Barbara Mjeski can build a bigger platform than the Today Show. That's the reality of today. Our digital footprint as a real estate brokerage, I have a bigger digital footprint than one of the oldest brokerages in Canada. It's about 100 times my size. And by her showing up in different stages and networking and going to 10X conferences and speaking on those stages is putting her in a position where now she is the human capital, right? She is the value. No one space owns people anymore. People choose to spend time in different spaces. And I'm thankful that Barbara chose to spend time in Breakfast with Champions, because her fingerprints are inspiring some of the work that we're doing in our company. And I remember DMing her, I think it was last week, and telling her just by proximity, she's in New York City, needs to meet Sirhan, who happens to be a buddy of mine. I'm sure there's a collaboration there for the two of them. I also think that's another way that I'm inspired by this room, is just the proximity to other people that inspire you allows connections to happen that may not have happened otherwise. So I've got another one here smiling right now, Mr. Billhauser. Hey. I think we all have fun with his segments. I've woken up my wife probably 2 or 3 times. If you've ever listened to a Billhauser segment, jump into the chat. Let me know what you think about Mr. Bill. Yeah, super tactical, like super tactical. I think one of my favorite things about Bill, one of my favorite segments he ever did was last week when he brought his wife on. The scale at which this dude works is absolutely incredible. And he's helped me in a big way step back and look at my organization from a bigger perspective and think about bigger numbers and think about building a foundation for a business that's about 10 times the size we are now. So at first I was an agent that wanted to sell one house. Then I wanted to sell a bunch of houses in one neighborhood. Then I wanted to sell in a bunch of neighborhoods and run a city. Now I happen to run all across Southwestern Ontario. I send deals all across North America. We send referrals across the globe. Still feels like I'm just getting started because of people like Bill. And this is where, if you're in these segments, pay attention, take some notes, make connections. I still got to track down this guy's address. And I have a little gift for him because he helped me with something in my business that was tangible and actually helped us in a very, very big way. So don't be afraid to love on people in your network as well too, and say thank you for things that they teach you. I don't know if Bill knows the impact that he's had on a lot of people here too, but now is a really good way for anybody here to thank Bill for anything he's taught them in the chat or in the Clubhouse chat. Feel free to just jump in either, and I'm going to read through the comments, and hopefully Bill sees them as well too. We've got a couple more to get through, and then we'll jump into just an open table. I couldn't let today go by without David Meltzer. No context to who David Meltzer was, which is my entire story of my life. I find myself in rooms with people I have no business knowing. Dave brought me on his podcast, and then I walked to my wife after. I'm like, hey, you ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire? I'm like, the company that was based on was this dude's podcast I was just on. And then again, it's so many things from that point on about David have imparted into the world around me. You know, we work jobs we hate to buy things we don't like to impress people we don't like. You know, tell me that doesn't ring true to so many people. Those are words out of Dave Meltzer's mouth, right? I think about the guy who has flown to the very top, been in the box at the Super Bowl, you know, been to the red carpet parties, has seen life with trappings, and really has found his purpose in life too. And does a great job reiterating that to the world. And also, one of my favorite things about Dave is Jakey Bakey. He found somebody that is riding at his right hand who understands how his brain works. So finding a Jakey Bakey in my world is what I'm looking for right now as well. And yeah, David's mindset piece is absolutely crucial. If you haven't found David Meltzer yet, go find his bio, send him a message, tell him I sent you. Really, really insightful dude. I think you'll absolutely love his content and what he's putting out in the world. And right in line with Mr. David Meltzer is my girl, Amelia Antonetti. I don't know if she's in the chat right now too. We've developed a friendship through this application, through spending time off Clubhouse as well too, working on big things. Really cool thing about Amelia Antonetti is the way that she's willing to have hard conversations with people she doesn't even know. And from a place of kindness, right? It's very direct, and she'll have a very quick conversation with you to try to get to the root cause of something. But as people talk to her, it may be uncomfortable because people aren't always willing to look at the mirror or be self-aware about situations. But she has a great way of bringing it out, laying it out, and then holding your hand and walking you through that process. So she has the Genius Key program. She has multiple segments. She'll be here actually at 9 a.m. So make sure you come back here at 9 a.m. on Clubhouse for the Genius Hour. But she is an absolute firecracker. Go check out her Instagram. She is all over the place and an absolute gangster. I loved when she was doing her segments with Niku as well, too, on the fitness side of things, too. And the lives really speaks to her personality and very approachable. I think all these people are very, very approachable as well, too. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to give these people some flowers. Jump in the comments. Let us know what you like about Amelia Antonetti as well. Couldn't let today go by without our girl, Dora Marie. I have watched her grow in this organization for months and months and months. And she is the heartbeat of the Breakfast with Champions. You see her at the top. Everybody make sure you click on her profile and connect with her as well. I don't know if you understand the depth of what she does for this community, yet she does it with grace, never asks for anything. You'll see her drop herself down into the audience, resort the audience, run the back rooms, get the music going, open the new rooms. We literally have hundreds and thousands of people that come through these rooms on a weekly basis. It's got to be tens of thousands of people. Yet she keeps us all in line too. And she's very intelligent as well. I don't know if you understand what her background is too, but her engineering background is so fascinating that to see the human engineering and the engineer part of her brain operate on a stage like this too. But yeah, just very resilient and has quite a story as well too. So I wanted to give her some flowers. So I got two more people. Brielle Rich. Very early on was one of the OG moderators of this entire club. I'm highlighting her because she was one of those people that in Clubhouse saw me when I don't necessarily think anybody else did, right? Like William would see me every single week. I don't really think I knew a lot of other people here. I'd kind of pipe in here and there, but on a regular basis, she was making time to reach out and connect. Pretty cool to watch her grow and have purpose in her life and understand where she's deploying her energy and what she wanted to accomplish. And she reminds me as well of what I said earlier on. A real friend is not a friend that's there to serve your needs today. And if they're not serving your needs, they're not your friend. Just like if you call me to list your house and say for some reason you hired somebody else and I'm like cold shoulder to you, I wasn't really your friend. Because if my friendship relies on me listing your house, then I'm not, because you didn't, then we're not really friends, right? Brielle's interesting because she can bounce in and out of different rooms and spaces. The friendship remains the same. She's like one of those friends you had from high school that maybe went away, lived somebody else for a year, and then came back. And it's the exact same person. I think that speaks to her character. And she runs rooms on Saturday mornings. I believe it's 5:30. Very insightful. She does an incredible job controlling a stage as well too, and maintaining the integrity of a room. Also has that aspect that Glenn had. Maybe that's because of the OG status and like early on in Clubhouse, but sees people in the audience, calls them by name, and is empathetic. So yeah, her, William, and Glenn all have that trait from very, very early on. I think because she was one of the smartest people early on in Clubhouse in understanding the human element of it versus some of the people in Clubhouse that just tried to turn it into a monetization strategy without seeing the human. And last but not least, because he's the guy that sparked the whole thing. I did the Prime People podcast with David Hill yesterday. I heard this guy. I always say he's riding a Peloton at 5 o'clock in the morning. Apparently it's not a Peloton. It's just like a road bike he has in his basement, but he's training for a triathlon. Similar story as me in terms of, background and adversity and maybe not being the person that you would think would be in a position of success today, but an absolute amazing family man, sales trainer. Like he's diehard sales trainer, role play rooms, understands cold calling like nobody's business. Actually, David, the sales angel's here as well. He's also my boy. Really tries to get tactical with the sales side of things. So very insightful. He's a trainer for Cardone. His podcast yesterday goes in depth into some tactical sales training aspects, but more than that, I wanted to highlight him because he just shows up. Like, tell me you haven't seen this dude show up on a daily basis and be the same person through and through and build and pour into the community and share what he could just by proximity. So I think David's a great example to wrap this session up. And there's so many other moderators that I could share in terms of how they've impacted me, but there's a through line between everybody that I just shared, right? There is a through line of consistency. There's a consistency of character. They show up, They are who they are. They're not afraid to be vulnerable. They're typically growing faster than you've ever seen, and they're sharing the aspects of their growth, what's working and not working. And I think there's last thing I'll say is every single person I just mentioned, they would be okay without Breakfast with Champions, right? I'm sure Breakfast with Champions would be okay without them, but we're much better together than we are apart. Those are the relationships that I want. Right? Every person that I mentioned would be perfectly fine if they didn't know Justin Conoco. I would probably be okay if I didn't know all of those people. But how much more powerful am I because I have them in my life and I have their fingerprints on my business and they've made me think about one little thing here or there. But far be it from me to not turn around and let them know that. So I want this segment to inspire anybody out there to look at the people in your community and take a little bit of time to thank them. Maybe grab your phone right now, click on Instagram, send them a DM and tell them something that they did for you that they maybe have no idea. Encouragement is one of the best ways that you can give back to other people. And guess what? It's free. And you'll be shocked at how hard people are on themselves. I asked David a question. You could go watch the podcast about, you know, how he looks at himself and how he continues to push through. And he said he's harder on himself than anybody is. And I bet you that's very true of you and everybody else. I bet you Barbara feels the same way. I bet you Brian, well, maybe not Brian, but I think a lot of people can be very, very hard on themselves and be their worst critics. So if you're in their community, I would absolutely love more than anything for you to take advantage of that most extraordinary opportunity of being in proximity to people like that. Tell them you love them, tell them why, and then hit them up and develop that relationship. And I think you'll be very surprised at where things will be in the long run. Somebody some flowers. We got a couple minutes here before Kim Walsh Phillips jumps in.